Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. So we are studying the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the chapter on what is called Vishwarupa Darshana, the vision of the cosmic form. Vishwarupa literally means cosmic form. It's a unique chapter in the whole Bhagavad Gita. All the chapters have Krishna teaching Arjuna something, except the first one, where Arjuna is basically whining. No, I mean, that's not fair. There, it's the beginning of the whole Bhagavad Gita, because Arjuna raises a very serious question there, the question of war. I was just yesterday in Stony Brook University in a group of philosophers, and one of the philosophers said to me, I'm worried about this question. I know somebody's going to ask me very soon in the class, the war, should we fight or not fight? And just to make it clear, none of these philosophers are going to fight. None of them. But they are worried about it. I said, yeah, go ahead and fight. So, no, it's not that simple. It is true. It's not that simple at all. And I told them an anecdote about Bertrand Russell and Wittgenstein. So in the First World War, Bertrand Russell and Wittgenstein both were in Cambridge University before that. And when the war broke out, Wittgenstein was Austrian. So, England, France, they were on one side, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire and Germany, they were on the other side. So Wittgenstein and Russell had diametrically opposite views. Should we fight or not? Remember, this was the First World War. And if you know the history, in the beginning of the war, everybody was very gung-ho about it. They all wanted to fight. They all went off with thoughts of glory. Back home by Christmas, that was the... no, not back home by Christmas. It would be more than 4 years, 5 years, and most of them wouldn't come home for any Christmas. So Bertrand Russell said, no, I will not fight. He was an objector. He was a conscientious objector, pacifist, and he stuck to his principles at the risk of losing his job and even being imprisoned, because you are a person, of some eminence in your country, and your country is at war, and you refuse to fight. So, he was really roundly condemned by a lot of people, except a few idealists. So he suffered for it. That's one. Wittgenstein took the exact opposite view. Remember, both of these are like the leading philosophers at least in the Anglophone world, in the English speaking world. Wittgenstein said, no, your country is at war. Whether you agree or do not agree, whatever it is, it's your duty to fight. If you're eligible to fight, you should fight. And he went off, joined the army, and did his best to get himself killed. He said his aim was to suffer and, if possible, die. And then, of course, they lost the war. He was put in a prisoner of war camp. And in fact, it was Bertrand Russell who helped to get him released from the prisoner of war camp. And later he came back to Cambridge and did more philosophy. But the point is, the question is not simple. And you can see two people reach diametrically opposite answers. And both on matters of principle. And both suffered terribly for it. Wittgenstein more, actually, because he was in the front line a lot of the times. And as it so happens to many people who have their head in the clouds, when they want to do something practical, they don't like it one bit at all. He joined the army as a matter of duty. I have to fight, if possible suffer, and if even better, die if possible. But he notes with annoyance the sheer brutality and the low class of all the other soldiers and sergeants. And what did he expect? Did they expect them to be philosophers also? No. He was the one who was out of place there. He didn't like them at all one bit, his co-soldiers. It is said of Karl Marx, most people don't know this anecdote, he did not like workers. At one time, when he was writing, for some of his friends took him to a workers' meeting in England. And he was so disgusted. They were dirty, smelly, coarse, stupid, compared to him, of course. So he came back and said, never do that again. Never. His whole life was standing up for workers and workers' revolution, but only thing is, don't let them in within 10 yards of me. Yeah. So that's the strange thing about many of these people who were great in their own way, but also the human side of that. So Arjuna, the first chapter, he asks this question, well, should I fight or not? And it's not a light question. He said, it will just lead to ruin and death and devastation. And for what? I remember in a class, a person no less eminent than Professor Amartya Sen, Indians here will recognize immediately. He said in the class, I was there. I don't know if he said it because he saw me sitting in the class. It was a criticism of the Bhagavad Gita. He said that in the end, those who have read the Mahabharata, in the end they will see that Arjuna spoke the truth. What Arjuna said, that's exactly what happened. Everything was ruined. Everything was devastated. So who was correct? He was correct, and not Krishna. So, yeah. All right. Then this is one unique chapter, chapter 1. The rest of it is Krishna's instructions to Arjuna, except chapter 11. Chapter 11 is when Arjuna says, I believe you. I believe God is there. This whole universe is a manifestation of God. You are an incarnation of God, therefore you are God. Even that I believe. All of it I believe, what you told me. But I want to see for myself. This is all theoretical to me. Can you experience it? And he says in a very humble way, if you think I can experience this, please show me. I don't know if he expected it. Krishna said, yes, all right. Since you're asking for it, you're really asking for it. So he did. What did he show Arjuna? The cosmic form of God. Cosmic form of God means, here one must understand the Vedanta metaphysics. The ultimate reality, Brahman, you can understand it at multiple levels. First is, there is God, Krishna is God, incarnation of God, and you believe in Krishna as the incarnation of God. That's it. You may stop there. It's entirely a matter of faith. A little higher than that is God as the creator, preserver, destroyer of the universe. Every theistic religion believes in God as the creator of this universe, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, all the omnis. So that's another level. And then there's a third level. See, God as the creator of the universe, you're inferring it. You have read it in books. People have told you about it. But what you see is this universe, is this world and ourselves. The third level is that reality which has created this universe is right here. It's literally the divinity is the material out of which this universe is created. So what we consider as a material universe is permeated through and through by a divine presence. This is called immanence, divine immanence. That's the third level. So the entire cosmos becomes as it were the body of God. And that's what he showed Arjuna. Is there something beyond that? Yes. When you, the individual, and that ultimate reality, when you realize we are one and the same thing, that Advaitic truth, I am that. That's non-duality. That's beyond that also. But this level is where Krishna shows the entire universe as I am that Brahman. As the universe as the body of God. What is it like? We are also seeing the universe, but we see it piecemeal, in bits and pieces. Right now you're seeing this much only. You're not seeing all of the universe altogether. And even when we see it piecemeal, we also see it as objects. Here are people, here are chairs and tables, here all of this stuff is there. We don't see it integrated in one person. Like I see a person, I see a body, but I don't think of that person as a collection of body parts. I think of that person as a person with a body with different parts. We don't see the universe that way. We don't see it as a cosmic person with the whole universe as different parts of a cosmic person. That's what Arjuna saw. That's what's called Vishwarupa, the cosmic form of God. And and nothing. Arjuna was stunned, shocked, terrified. He was terrified. The result only was he was frightened out of his wits. And he said, take it back, I don't want to see this. I would rather see you in your human form. This chapter is so powerful in its poetic imagery. So there aren't many teachings here. It's just the poetic imagery, which is very, very rousing, very inspiring, and awesome, sort of awesome. Many people think this is the climax of the Bhagavad Gita. Why is there a 12th chapter at all? We should end with, Krishna taught Arjuna so many things, and 11th chapter, Arjuna saw Krishna in this form. That's the end of it. I remember the Bhagavad Gita was being discussed at Harvard University in Professor Clooney's class. When we came to the 11th chapter, he said this is one of the greatest anti-climaxes in the history of world literature is the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. After this amazing thing, what happens next? Arjuna is shaken, but not that shaken. He comes back to his self and starts peppering Krishna with lots of questions. Again, just as he had done in the earlier chapters. So it just goes on. More questions, more answers, more philosophy, more practical spiritual instructions, and so on. It seems amazing to us. Why would this be so? But the interesting thing is none of the classical commentators, Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, Sridhara, Madhusudan, none of the classical commentators give too much importance to this chapter. They don't find it strange that after chapter 11 comes chapter 12. So this is a tremendous spiritual experience. Now Arjuna knows, he doesn't just believe. Before this he said, I believe. Now he says, I know. It is true that God exists. You are an incarnation of God. This entire universe is permeated by divinity. But still he needs to realize it. This is not enlightenment. You have to go further. All right. So with this background, we have been going through the verses quite fast because it's basically poetry. Oppenheimer, now there's a movie, he quoted from this chapter. In fact, the verse he quoted will come now, when he saw the explosion of the first atom bomb. I am come time, the destroyer of worlds. Another one we also did, like 1,000 suns rising in the sky together. Of course, this was a vision of God. That was a vision of the atom bomb. We had done 25 last time. Verse number 25? No, nobody seems to be too sure. Yes. All right. 26. This goes on. What is Arjuna seeing? What is he seeing? A description, very poetic description. Verse number 26. Those who want, you can chant after me. Ami cha tvāṁ dhṛitarāśtrasya putrāḥ. Ami cha tvāṁ dhṛitarāśtrasya putrāḥ. Sarve sahaivāvani-pāla-saṅghaiḥ. Sarve sahaivāvani-pāla-saṅghaiḥ. Bheeshmo droṇaḥ sūta-putras tathāsausahāsmadīyair. Bheeshmo droṇaḥ sūta-putras tathāsausahāsmadīyair api yodha-mukhyaiḥ. Sahāsmadīyair api yodha-mukhyaiḥ. Vaktrāṇi te tvaramāṇā viśhanti. Vaktrāṇi te tvaramāṇā viśhanti. daśhanāntareṣhusandṛā-karālāni bhayānakāni. daśhanāntareṣhusandṛā-karālāni bhayānakāni. Kechid vilagnā daśhanāntareṣhu. Kechid vilagnā daśhanāntareṣhu. Sandṛiśhyante chūrṇitair uttamāṅgaiḥ. Sandṛiśhyante chūrṇitair uttamāṅgaiḥ. I'll read out the translation. All those sons of Dhritarashtra, along with the hosts of kings, Bheeshma, Drona, as also the charioteer's son, which is Karna, together with the principal warriors on our side, are entering in a rush into your terrible jaws, fearful with teeth. Some are seen sticking in the interstices of the teeth with their heads smashed. So a terrible vision that all are rushing to their death. This particular book I'm using is a commentary, old commentary, 600 years old, by Sridhara Swami. So he introduces these verses saying that whatever else you wanted to see, you have seen all of this, the entire universe is my body, whatever else you wanted to see, and he comments here, the commentator, Bhavi Jaya Parajaya Adikam, the victory or defeat to come. It's a war. So naturally he's concerned whether I will win, who will win? Will we win or will we be defeated and wiped out? And the commentator says, now Krishna is going to show that also. Time travel. From our perspective, we are moving from the past to the present to the future. From Krishna's perspective, from God's perspective, it's like looking at one line. He sees all of it at once. What is in the past, what is now, what is in the future. This is a very curious, startling, and rather awe-inspiring, even scary little sentence in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, where Sri Ramakrishna says to M, the author, suddenly turning upon him and says, tell me in truth, do I not know all your past and your present and your future? And something comes over M and he bows down with his hands folded and he says, yes, you do. You do. Krishna said earlier to Arjuna a few chapters ago, many lives. So he says, this is the spiritual knowledge I'm giving you. I have given it to sages and kings in ages past. And Arjuna asks the no-brainer question. What do you mean you have given to those kings? They were born thousands of years ago. You were born just the other day. We are born almost the same age. How did you give them? So this is an occasion to introduce the doctrine of rebirth. And Krishna says, we have had many lives. You, my friend, and I, and all these kings and all these soldiers, we have had many lives. You do not remember any of them. I remember all of them, mine and yours. So from Krishna's perspective, from God's perspective, time is this flat, the line which he can see all of it, beginning, middle, and end. So he's going to talk about what's going to happen in the future, also going to show him. But now he shows destruction. And the commentator also says, notice, he's not only saying that all the enemies are going to be destroyed. Arjuna sees all those who are in front, who are going to fight with him, he sees them as all rushing towards destruction. All the great warriors in front of him. But also he says, I see our people too. Those who are on our side, they are also rushing to destruction. Destruction where? In God. He's as if it were eating them up. And he goes on, 28th verse. Yatha nadinam bahavam buvega, yatha nadinam bahavam buvega, samudrameva bhimukha dravanti, samudrameva bhimukha dravanti, tatha tavami naraloka vira, tatha tavami naraloka vira, viśhantidanṣhṭrā-karālāni abhivijvalanti, viśhantidanṣhṭrā-karālāni abhivijvalanti. As many currents of water from rivers flow towards the sea alone, even so do these heroes in the world of men enter your mouths, flaming all around. So remember, he saw God with faces facing all direction and all blazing with fire. So he says, as rivers in various courses, they all run into the sea, in the ocean, all lives are rushing towards you. That's all of us. We don't see it. I mentioned this book, The Denial of Death, Becker. We got a Pulitzer Prize for it. He says that's one thing that's happening all the time, and we are continuously denying it, and we are looking away, turning our face away from it. Arjuna can't turn his face away from it. He's shown that everybody in this world, your hated enemies, your near and dear ones, you yourself, you're all rushing towards this inevitable and very soon this end which is coming to all of us. Then next, another such example, 29. In English, you have the phrase like moths to a flame. Exactly the same one. 29. Yatha pradiptam jwalanam patanga. Yatha pradiptam jwalanam patanga. Viśhantināṣāya samriddha vega. Viśhantināṣāya samriddha vega. Tathaiva nāṣāya vishanti loka. Tathaiva na vishanti loka. Tavapi vaktrāṇi samriddha vega. Tavapi vaktrāṇi samriddha vega. As moths enter into a blazing fire with great speed, only to be destroyed, even so are these people also entering into your mouths with great speed, just to be destroyed. So the commentator here says two examples. The one earlier was rivers into the ocean. So insentient beings, things in the world. And now he says, avashatvena praveshe nadivega drishtanta, buddhipurvaka praveshe drishtantamaha. Just by natural force, the rivers flow into the ocean. But here there are sentient beings who seem to have free will, and living beings, and they are also rushing towards you, and to their inevitable destruction. What's the point here? Brahman, God, is defined in Vedanta as the source, sustainer, and destroyer of this universe. Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Karta. Just as the ocean or water is the source from which waves come up. Where do the waves exist? In water. Where do they finally disappear? Back into water. I was discussing this with yesterday in the university with a leading scholar of Islam. In Islam, of course, he didn't tell me this, but this is something else I got. They have the names of Allah. So, two of the names are the beginning and the end. The first. What is at the beginning of the universe, at the beginning of our lives, at the beginning of everything? The first. The name is the first. The first means God. Al-Awwal, the first. And then the last. At our death, at the death of the universe, what will be there? Al-Akhir, the last, the final. Very evocative Arabic words. The beginning and the end of all things. That's what he's saying here. Often in Christianity and also Judaism, even in Islam also, the fact that God is the destroyer is not stressed. We don't want to think about it. But it must be. If there's one ultimate power, all that is in the beginning, in the middle, and the end must be that same divinity. In Tantra, there is the Divine Mother. So Mother is the creator, is the one who gives birth to us, is the one who sustains us and nourishes us. But in the form of Kali, she's also the destroyer of the entire universe. She dissolves the entire universe back into herself. And so different forms of Kali are there. Some are nourishing, some are protective, some are scary. There is something called Shashan Kali, the Kali in the cremation ground. So, Hindus, after death, the bodies are consigned to the funeral fire. So it's the cremation ground. And it's supposed to be a terrible and scary place, haunted by ghosts. And it's perpetual Halloween there. And there is a song which is a song to the Divine Mother, Kali. Shashane Jagi Choshama. Who is awake in the cremation? Everybody's dead there. And people who have come to burn the dead bodies, they were left. So all you can see are the funeral pyres burning and everybody has gone away. Who is the only one who is awake? It's the mother to receive her children who are coming back to her. So Shashane Jagi Choshama. In the cremation ground thou art awake, O dark mother. And why I was reminded of this was many years ago, exactly about 30 years ago, I had just joined. I was a new novice in our ashram in Deoghar, Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapith. And the president of our order at that time, Swami Bhuteshanandaji, also my guru, he was visiting that ashram. I still can vividly recall that evening. So in the evening, he was sitting there, and remember, he was at that time, I think, 95 years or 94 years old, and he was the head of the entire order, and not doing too well physically. So he just had a heart operation at the age of 94. So he was sitting there. All the senior monks were there, and others, and I was absolutely a newcomer. I just joined the day before. I was 1 day old, less. I didn't know what was going on. Later I understood. So one of the a gentleman who was the music teacher in that school, he was a trained classical musician, a devotee also. I remember his name, Manoranjan Babu. So he was asked to sing a song, a devotional song, and he sang this song. But Swami Bhuteshanji threw him into such a deeply inward mood, a very grave, profound inward mood, and there was a deep silence all around. And one of the senior Swamis told this gentleman not to sing that, stop. So they're all afraid that he would turn his mind away from this life and let go of the body. Number 30. Lelihase grasamana samantat, Lelihase grasamana samantat, Lokan samagran vadanir jwaladbhi, Lokan samagran vadanir jwaladbhi, Tejo bhirapurya jagat samagram, Tejo bhirapurya jagat samagram, Bhasastavogra pratapanti Vishnu, Bhasastavogra pratapanti Vishnu. You are licking all, that sounds faintly disgusting, you are licking all these people on all sides, while on all sides, while devouring them with your flaming mouths, filling this entire world with its radiance. Your fierce glow is scorching it, O Vishnu. Now Arjuna asks, he says, I'm bewildered, I don't understand this, what is going on here? This is terrifying. Please speak to me. So he's going to ask this question, and Krishna will speak. But remember, who is speaking? That form, the terrifying form. So it looks at you and then speaks. And what he says doesn't reassure him one bit. He asks, who are you? Tell me, who are you? And he says, I am the destruction of the universe. I have come, time, the destroyer of worlds. 31. Akhyahi me ko bhavan ugra rupo, Akhyahi me ko bhavan ugra rupo, Namastute devavara prasida, Namastute devavara prasida, Vijñātumiccāmi bhavantamadhyam, Vijñātumiccāmi bhavantamadhyam, Nahi prajanami tava pravrittim, Nahi prajanami tava pravrittim. Tell me who you are of ferocious form. Salutations to you, O great God, be pleased. I would like to know you, the primeval being, for I do not comprehend your inclination. Means intent. Now the Lord will speak in 3 verses, which will scare Arjuna even more. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kalosmi lokakshaya pravriddho, Kalosmi lokakshaya pravriddho, Lokan samahattum iha pravritta, Lokan samahattum iha pravritta, Ritepi tvāṁ na bhavishyanti sarve, ritepi tvaṁ na bhavishyanti sarve yeva sthita pratyanikeshu yodha yeva sthita pratyanikeshu yodha. The blessed Lord said, I am the terrible time, the destroyer of worlds, and I am here proceeding to destroy the worlds. Even without you, all these warriors in these armies shall cease to be. So this is the famous verse quoted by Oppenheimer when he saw the first explosion of the first atom bomb. I have come, time, the destroyer of worlds. Kalo asmi, I am time. Lokakshaya pravritta, lokakshaya krit pravritto, the destroyer of worlds. Lokakshaya literally means the decay of the worlds, the decay of the universe. And what is your intent? What do you want? He says, I want the destruction of the universe. And then he says, all of these, what you see, all those surrounding you, your enemies and your friends, and all of them here, they are all doomed. They will die. Whether you kill them or not doesn't matter. So this terrifying and shocking revelation, and in a certain sense merciless. There's no consideration of our human sentiment here at all. And the next verse is also very powerful. Number 33. So what do we do with this? And there's the answer here, 33. Tasmat tvam uttishta yasho labhasva, tasmat tvam uttishta yasho labhasva, jitva shatrun bhungshvarajyam samriddham, jitva shatrun bhungshvarajyam samriddham, mayyevete nihata purvameva, mayyevete nihata purvameva, nimittamatram bhavasavyasachin, nimittamatram bhavasavyasachin. Therefore arise and attain fame, and conquering your enemies, enjoy a flourishing kingdom. By me alone have these been killed already, O Savyasachin Arjuna. You be merely an instrument. This needs a lot of unpacking. This is the implication. If you ask, what does this all mean for me? What does it mean for free will? How are we supposed to live our lives if this is what is going on in the universe, if this is the truth? And here is the answer. What difference will it make to me? This is pretty much nothing. And that follows, not much is in your hands anyway, so nothing that you say, do, think will make any difference. What will happen in this universe? Exactly what I want will happen. Then, what do I do? He gives the answer. We'll unpack this. It's very relevant right now because there's this book which is making the rounds. Roger Sapolsky? Determined. Yeah. I haven't met him. I was just watching an interview, and the book was recommended to me by Swami Medhanandayan Maharaj. So, yeah, he sounds a lot like Krishna here. He's pretty blunt. He looks like a Vedic rishi also, long white beard and scraggly hair and philosopher's eyes. The Guardian review by Oliver Berkman. He said he comes across a vastly learned West Coast slacker. West Coast slacker. So there he stays straight away, almost exactly what Krishna is saying here. There is no free will. It's an illusion that anything that you are at all in charge of anything in your life. And he says, now, what remains to us is how do we live and what consequence this has for human society. And he's approaching it entirely from a cognitive science and neuroscience perspective, not from Vedanta or Gita, but coming to very similar conclusions. All right. Often these things are cushioned by saying, no, all that may be some kind of philosophy or science, but practically we all have free will. And that's what Sapolsky is saying. Practically you don't. It's a myth. Yeah. He said, for want of a more polite word, it's a myth. All right. So, tasmat tvam uttishta yasho labhasva. So, if this is true, then what should I do? Be up and doing. Get up and fight. Take action. Which is very interesting. This is the first thing, literally the first thing Krishna said to Arjuna in the beginning. First chapter, Arjuna put his problems forward, that why I should not find, or I don't understand whether I should or should not. I'm confused. And the first thing that Krishna said to him was, instead of teaching him, first he scolded him. Chapter 2, verse 3. Yes. Klaivyam masma gamah partha naitatvai upapadyate. I think it's chapter 2, verse 3. Chapter 2, verse... Yes. Klaivyam masma gamah partha naitatvai upapadyate. Kshudram hridaya daurbalyam tekto uttishta parantapa. He says that this paralysis, I don't know what to do. This does not befit you. You are a warrior, a man of action. This smallness, this pettiness, this littleness doesn't suit you. You're bigger than this. And so, get up and fight, he says. And exactly the same language he says here. And none of the classical commentators have paid much attention to that particular verse. The first one, that chapter 2, verse 3. That's the first thing that Krishna says to, almost the first thing that Krishna says to Arjuna. Swami Vivekananda, on the other hand, he says, reading this verse, you get the merit of reading the entire Gita. And the message of the entire Gita is in this verse. That goes very well with Swamiji's message, his first and central message to all of humanity, that all help is within you. Do not seek help from elsewhere. Once you find that help is within you, all strength is within you, then only help from outside can help you. And why, he says, why should you? Are you not men and women as great as anybody that ever existed? What he means there is that before all spiritual practices, before all devotion, faith, religion, meditation, philosophy, whatever it is, counseling, science, art, whatever it is, before all of that, first comes this impulse from within, I am going to be better than I am. I want to make a change. For myself, for others. Unless this impulse comes from within, I'm going to help myself. Nobody can help you. Once you make up your mind, I'm going to change things, the world will come around. The universe will send its forces to stand by you. So this was Vivekananda's take on that verse. And Krishna here is saying, because all of this is true, get up and take charge of your life. How so? And then he says, Yasho labhasva, gain fame. The commentators say there that it's free. I'm doing all the heavy lifting for you. Everything will be done for you. You just let it happen through you. Jitva shatrun bhungshva rajyam samriddham. Overcome your enemies and enjoy or gain this prosperous kingdom. That was his original goal. You remember the whole context of the Mahabharata war. And these were 5 brothers and they were unfairly deprived of what was rightfully theirs, their kingdom. And a lot of, they were tortured and oppressed by these villains, their own cousins. And so they decided to fight this just war to regain what was theirs. And then Arjuna saw that, no, that didn't matter at all. Because now he says, I don't want the kingdom. So should I still fight this war? And Krishna tells him, you have to fight it not just because you want a kingdom, it's because it's the right thing to do, because it's your duty. And so that was the context of the whole Gita. Here he says, here is this kingdom. That's what you wanted, isn't it? You're getting it. And the work for getting it, the battle will be fought by me. So earn the reputation of the great warrior who defeated the Kauravas. You win this kingdom. Samriddham. A prosperous kingdom. A prosperous kingdom. So very interesting. One commentator points out, what's a prosperous kingdom? What's a good kingdom or prosperous kingdom? Where there is prosperity, wealth, success, things are going well. Also, you have wiped out your enemies. Those who threaten the kingdom. No matter, it's true. No matter how much of a great economy and place you build up and all, if you have next door Hamas sitting there, not much good. So, he says, that's something that struck the commentator. So, here is this kingdom. Of course, none of it will last long. You're also going to die very soon. So, but where is the solution to the problem of free will here? That's what's coming next, most important. Mayeva nihita purvameva nimittamatram bhavasabhyasachin. All these, your enemies, they are all dead anyway, as you all are anyway. So, because I am the end of all beings. So Brahman, as was defined, and just before this he said, I am time, the destroyer of all things. Then what do I do? There is this phrase here which is crucial. Nimitta matram bhavasabhyasachin. You be the instrument, you be the channel, you be that through which the divine will works itself out. As against what you think of yourself right now. I am the doer of these deeds, and these are the results I will expect. And so, I am the doer of the karma and the enjoyer or the sufferer of the results of karma. Neither is true. Neither is true. Krishna says, I am actually God alone is the doer of all things in this universe. And whatever comes as a result of that also, it's God alone who gives, not us. We have no control of either doing, courtesy Sapolsky, determined, and no control of the ultimate results of anything. All right, so what does it mean actually, all of this? Now we come to the point. The point is this, that as far as spiritual life is concerned, enlightenment, God realization, all of that is concerned, the result that enlightenment, God realization, salvation, moksha, whatever you call it, is not a result of our doing. It's entirely given out of grace. That's central to the Catholic doctrine. In fact, also the Christian doctrine, most Christian churches would believe in this. That you do not get salvation by your good works. You get salvation by the grace of God, because of Jesus Christ. That is the Christian idea. But that is central to Vedanta also. In fact, every deep understanding of what's going on in the universe is that it's not up to us. Moksha, nirvana, enlightenment, God realization is a gift freely given by God. Then what about us? What should we do? Just wait around, hang around, waiting for it to happen? No. You have to want to, really, really want it. And that really, really wanting it will be expressed in your spiritual practice, in you being up and doing. You have to ask, then only it will be given to you. If you do not ask, it will not be given, because you don't really want it. Are our efforts God's grace? Our efforts? Our efforts are also God's grace. Yeah, that's the thing. See, these are things which should be handled carefully. The immediate result will be, so I am not really good at meditation and I don't really have so much love for God, and it's out of my hands also. So, so the hard questions when you ask, if you say there is no free will, and if you ask the hard questions, the answers can be devastating. So I was reading that Sapolsky, he was asked, so are we not responsible? Won't people do terrible things if they hear that there's no free will? If there's no free will, then I'm not responsible. It's nature which is making me do these things. So will I not do terrible things? He said, no, you'll do more or less what you have been doing all along. Just because you read a book or I tell you something, he won't change what you're doing. You will carry on the way you are carrying on. And those people who have done great, we are always told this thing, you can make your life much better. And he says, no, you can't. He says, most people, those who have done great things, have tremendous powers of concentration, great creativity, lead a very disciplined life. What do you say to that? Every positive thoughts all the teachers and they all teach motivational speakers. They'll be out of a job if this is true. They want you to improve your life by leaps and bounds. Positive psychology, motivational speakers and all. And Sapolsky says, no, mostly luck. Some people have that. By luck, you have the characteristics of discipline, focus, and you will make something of your life. You never know also. Even with all the discipline and focus, it might not work out. Others don't have that luck. They haven't drawn on the right genetics or nurture, and so they don't.
So in this opinion, everything is random?
Not random. It's determined. Determined by many, many factors, some of which are biological, psychological, economic, whatever, it's determined. If you think that I'm going to make a change in your life, you can't. That's what he's saying. And it's karma. And so can we make a big change to our lives? He says, probably not. Should you try? See, that's also determined. Whether you'll try or not, also determined. And then he says, shouldn't we hold people responsible? He said, those are the big questions. And so you don't know. Now, he says here that whatever is going on here is the Lord's will, and we should recognize it as that. Effort, however, he says, you have to do it. This is the interesting thing. He says, everything here is being done by me. What do? Work hard. Together. Sri Ramakrishna gave this example of a bird which flew and sat on the mast of a ship. And unknown to it, the ship sailed into the sea. And wherever the bird flew, he suddenly realized the ship was in sea, it was water all around. So it flew to the east, found no land, flew back to the mast, and then again flew to the west and the north and the south. Everywhere there's water and just water. So it just came back. It's helpless. It can't go anywhere. It'll die. So it just came and sat on the mast of the ship. And the ship itself took it to land finally. Similarly, he says that whatever you try, you will realize ultimately you have to take refuge in God. That sitting on the mast of the ship, don't fly around. Don't flap your wings unnecessarily. Finally settle down and surrender to God, and then lead your life. Let your life go on as it is going on. There's a funny additional story to this. Years later, when Swami Turiyanandaji, one of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he was in our ashram in Banaras. A young monk who read this story and understood that you have to surrender to God. He said to Swami Turiyananda, I've understood. I won't fly around here and there. I'll just settle down on the mast. I'll just surrender to God. I'll settle down on the mast and sit still. And Turiyanandaji said, when did you fly? You haven't done anything yet. That's the point. You must try. It's not a call to be lazy. You must try your best and surrender the results to God. If you feel you have free will, you must exercise it. The problem is what, we feel we are doing it, and it's been done by us, and we deserve these results. And the results don't come, we complain to God. I was so good, why didn't I get these results? Or, I was good, why did I suffer so much? It's like we have a right to these results and not to those. And also as if we did it. This is a very cute little story. One of the stories about Krishna's childhood is when there was a lot of thunder and storm and everything. Krishna, the famous story of lifting the hill. He lifted a Govardhan hill. Krishna lifted it, the whole mountain, and so everybody took refuge. The cowherds and their cattle, they took refuge under the hill. So Krishna, with his left hand and little, pinky, he lifted the whole hill. Now that's all that we know. But there's a variation to this story. He calls all the cowherd boys and he says, help me. Put your staffs up and support the hill. We'll be saved from the thunder and lightning and the storms. And so all the cowherd boys, they work very hard. They put staffs up and then they got a little bit, they feel, we have helped Krishna to hold the mountain up. The moment they felt this, Krishna slowly relaxed a little bit of the finger and let go. And the mountain began to come down. And all the cowherd boys shouted out, oh, we're getting crushed. We're dying. Help, help. And then they realized it was not our strength which is holding up the mountain, but Krishna's strength. There is a story in the Upanishads, in the Kena Upanishad, where the demons and the gods are always fighting. And then the gods, they call out to God, capital G, God, to help them. Vishnu, usually it's Vishnu, to help us to fight against the demons. And usually Vishnu comes down and helps the gods. The gods are always the good guys, and demons, they get defeated. But in the story, the gods felt, we have defeated these demons. It is our glory. Original Upanishad. Asmakam evayam vijayo, asmakam evayam mahimeti. It is our victory, it is our glories, and so the gods felt. And then this whole story goes how, God, capital G, Brahman, comes down in a form of manifests, in an extraordinary manifestation. And then the whole story evolves from there. How he teaches them, it is by my power that you are empowered. So we learn that. All great spiritual teachers throughout history, they have testified to this. And having testified to this, that it's actually God's will which is done on in this world and everywhere, not ours. Having testified to that seems very paradoxical. Their conclusion is, work hard, try your best. Don't slack because, also I don't have anything to do. That's why in general these teachings are not given at the beginning. Because people will immediately misunderstand. Anyway, we don't want to do spiritual practice. We don't want to. Meditation is difficult. Prayer is difficult. Doing selfless work, I don't want to really. So all of that is difficult. And if I'm told it's not under your control anyway, so yeah, it's not under control. I don't feel like doing it. So that's it. Whereas we are very, very particular about doing the things we really want. Whatever it is that we want in this world, money, power, relationships, Facebook likes, whatever it is, we are up and doing, trying to get as much as possible. So, that's why be up and doing. Otherwise, it won't work. The best analysis of this, which I have found, I mentioned it earlier, is a very nice analysis by Professor Arindam Chakravarti, who is a professor of philosophy. He wrote this essay on free will called "Why Pray to a God Who Can Hear the Anklets on an Ant's Feet?" He's quoting from Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna says God hears everything, and he hears the sound of anklets on the feet of an ant. Those who are from India, you know that little kids, boys, girls, they used to have little anklets put on their ankles to make. Nowadays they have these little shoes which are squeaky. We have seen kids, they flash lights and they make squeaky sounds. I think anklets were better, more musical. Now, Sri Ramakrishna fancies as if an ant, suppose an ant, such tiny feet, and if you put anklets on the ant's tiny feet, how tiny they would be, and what a tiny little sound they would make. And he says, God hears the sound of the anklets on an ant's feet, meaning thereby that God hears everything, knows everything. Now, this professor, he raises the question, why pray to a God who knows everything? So God will give us whatever. You can see the link he will bring with free will here. So God's going to give us whatever we need, right? Whatever we want, God's going to give us because we know, God knows what we want. No. Then he goes into the discussion of free will. It's a very nice article, about 25 pages. He takes a survey of all the theories of free will. First, he takes up what is known as the theories of determinism, like Sapolsky. First he takes up libertarianism, which is that we have free will. There are different theories of that. He surveys that and shows their shortcomings. Then he takes up determinism, the theories of from neuroscience, from philosophy of mind, from the hard science also. The things are causal. If it's in causal universe, everything is determined back to the day of the Big Bang. Everything follows from that. How can you have anything different? How can you have any freedom here? It's all causal. It's a causal chain. And then he takes up theories of what are called compatibilism, that free will and determinism are not against each other. They work together. For example, he gives two examples there. One is our body itself. So I raise my hand. I want to raise my hand, and I'm raising my hand. I think my freedom, I have a freedom in raising my hand or not. I have. But it depends on a lot of causal links here. That thought must be converted into the proper neurons firing, and that must be converted into the right muscles contracting and clenching, and then my joints and all working, and then only I can raise my hand. So all of it is determined back to that initial decision. So free will depends on determinism for being free. Suppose, the contrary example, I want to raise my hand, but I am paralyzed. My hand doesn't respond to my will. Is that free will? No. So even to exercise free will, you need causality. Another example he gives is in the realm of mathematics. So a mathematician is free to think and understand and prove hypotheses, but only on the basis of fixed axioms. If anything can be anything, you can't prove anything at all. So there is there's a logic to the axioms of any kind of math that you do, and that must be fixed. The rules of the game must be fixed. They can't keep changing all the time. Only in one case the rules of the game have changed, and that is Krishna, God. And God says, I am the one who originated this game, and I set the rules, and I change them whenever I want. But luckily the thing is, he is the player also. He is us also, the one who is playing this game. Otherwise it would be terrible. If we are the players and there is some other power which is in charge of everything. Then what conclusion does he come to, Professor Arindam Chakravarti? Finally comes to the conclusion, at our first glance, there is free will. Everything in society requires free will. You want to go and buy something, to Walgreens, you want to go and buy some stuff. There's enormous choice there. What does that choice mean? You have free will. You can choose what you want. Economics depends on free will. Your political system, democracy depends on free will. Your legal system, the judge can punish you or not punish you because the judge thinks you have free will. You freely did wrong things. Therefore, you can be punished. If you reduced capacity, that's an argument. This person does not have free will to act. So, the judge cannot punish you. Therefore, law, economics, politics, everything in our life. And we also have a common sense feeling that we have some free will. So that's the first stage. The second stage, Professor Chakravarti says, when we investigate this so-called free will, we find that there can be no free will. Science, philosophy, religion, all of it is seeming to tell us, and now with Sapolsky's book, overwhelmingly seems to tell us there isn't. What you feel, what do I feel then? I feel I'm free. That's an illusion. That's your brain taking you for a ride. Then third level and final level. So what do we do then? So there is a very subtle solution he has given, Arindam Chakravarti, and what Krishna is suggesting here is that you take up that illusion of free will you have. You feel your free will, so take it up. But then you now know through religion, philosophy, science that it's an illusion. You really don't have free will. So acknowledge that I'm not really free. Using what? Using that feeling of free will. Acknowledge, not I, but thou, my Lord. He says, Naham, tuhu. You, my Lord, in every aspect of our life, both secular and certainly in spiritual life, it all depends on God. This complete moment-to-moment self-surrender is the implication of this. In self-surrender, there are two things. If you're going to do this self-surrender, you assume that you're free to do that. But surrender also means acknowledging that you don't have freedom. So it's a very beautiful reconciliation. And that's the highest teaching of all religions who believe in God. In Hinduism, it is Hinduism. In Christianity, in Islam, in Judaism, the highest practice finally is acknowledgement that it is the Lord's will and everything that we get is grace. I heard something very beautiful. Shaivism is of different kinds across India. In Tamil Nadu, there is a dualistic Shaivism. In Kashmir, there is a non-dualistic Shaivism. Tamil Nadu is a dualistic Shaivism. One gentleman, I have not studied it, but he told me there are different levels of spiritual attainment. And the last but one level is full realization, your identity with Shiva. And full freedom, your moksha, you become a fully liberated being. Nothing higher than that. But there remains one last thing. The last thing is called this kripa sakshatkara. Your final realization is everything that happened in life, from your bondage and your life and death, cycles of life and death, to your spiritual practices, to your eventual liberation and the enlightenment that you have got, all of it was beginning to end, A to Z, it was the grace of God. That's the highest. These are theistic religions which believe in God. Buddhism, Jainism, the ones which do not believe in God, they mediate it in another way. They approach it another way.
How do they approach it?
There is that instead of saying, my will is doing things, they first deconstruct you, that you don't exist. This idea that I am this person in this body, they will show you that there is no such person. It's an illusion generated by the continuous movements of body-mind. This persisting person. They deconstruct the person. And therefore the feeling that I am in charge and I'm doing things. No. So who is doing things? Nature is. Krishna says this in this book itself. Prakrityeva karmani kriyamanani sarvasha ya pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sapashyati. Nature alone does everything. The one who realizes it, realizes the self is Sankhya. The one who realizes it, realizes that the self does nothing. You are not the doer of anything. This is one thing that Krishna has said thrice in the Bhagavad Gita, in different ways, in different places. Not even using the God language. Just say nature does everything. Sapolsky would be happy. He said, that's what I'm saying. But that's wonderful actually. That's spiritual freedom. Vivekananda said, not free will. Free will, he says, is a contradiction in terms, but there is freedom. You are free. The moment you say will, I will do this, you're already in the realm of causation. All right. There is, we'll end. Savyasachin, this word Savyasachin which he uses is a common name for boys in India. Many people don't know what it means. It means that ambidextrous. You can use not right-handed, not left-handed. Literally, it means somebody who can shoot arrows with both hands. Even more precisely, it means you can notch the arrow and draw the bowstring with both hands. That's the thing which he addresses Arjuna with. All right. So much for free will. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.